Welcome to the Golden Gems podcast. Today we're taking a deep dive into Katt Williams, the sovereign architect of truth and satire, analyzing how the comedian leveraged his controversial persona to deliver radical social and industry critiques. So, in 2024, we all saw something that it completely broke the internet. The sheer scale of the impact from that one Club Shay Shay interview was astonishing.
It really was.
83 million views. That's not just a popular video. That was a full-scale indictment of the whole comedy establishment, and the audience was the jury. It felt like the entire industry got put on notice.
And that impact, it forces you to completely shift your perspective on him. To even understand what he's doing now, here in late 2025, you have to stop seeing him as a celebrity. He's what our source material calls a forensic auditor of the American lie.
A forensic auditor, I like that.
Yeah.
So that's why it felt less like an interview and more like a deposition.
Exactly. A forensic auditor doesn't just skim the surface, right? They trace every single compromise back to its origin. And now he's building the solution. He's mostly retreated to his farm, heaven on earth, and he's already broken ground on Katt Film Studios, which is affiliated with an HBCU.
So he's creating a bypass.
It's explicitly designed to bypass the very gatekeepers he spent the last year exposing.
Okay, let's unpack that. Our source material argues his entire career is this study in radical sovereignty, that it's all about these calculated subtractions from systems of control, but you can't really get to the industry audit without going back to the very beginning.
It's the essential origin story. He was born Katt Williams, 1971, and his early life in Cincinnati and Dayton was defined by a strict Jehovah's Witness environment.
Right.
And that's not just about religion. The source calls it a training ground in binary ethics. It gives him this absolute moral compass, a really clear framework of good and evil that he later just applies to all the compromises in Hollywood.
But wait, does that binary thinking also make him so uncompromising? Maybe even rigid? Is that training ground both a strength and, a blind spot?
I think it created an untouchable strength.
Yeah.
What's fascinating is how if you're taught your primary allegiance is to God, not to any human authority, it just preemptively neutralizes the power of earthly gatekeepers.
So a studio head means nothing.
A school principal,
Right.
a Hollywood executive, their demands are always secondary. That spiritual self-determination, that's the real root of his sovereignty today.
And that framework was then sharpened by this incredible early intelligence. He was reading fluently by age 3. Basically absorbed thousands of books just to survive a chaotic home life. Then he picks up French and Creole.
Which become these linguistic tools for him to deconstruct everything.
Yeah, to deconstruct street vernacular, mainstream narratives, all of it with this surgical precision.
And then all that intellectual power gets permanently calibrated by just raw, real-world suffering. The source material points to his 1.5 years as a missionary in Haiti.
That's profound.
We're talking about a very young man helping distribute basically saltwater rehydration tips to mothers with dying infants. It instills this permanent recalibration of what really matters. The source notes that the anxieties of Hollywood, a bad review, a failed deal, could never hold any real terror for him after that.
When you face that, the business of comedy loses all its power to intimidate you.
Exactly.
And that leads to this first huge act of sovereign will. At 12 years old, he gets a scholarship to the National Science Academy, a huge deal. But he sees it as just a different kind of cage.
And he intentionally fails the qualifying math test.
He tanks it on purpose. He chose freedom over this prescribed path to success.
That decision is just staggering. It's this conscious act of self-sabotage that leads directly to him being emancipated at 13. He literally rejected safety for autonomy.
Then he spends 4 years homeless, using libraries as his sanctuary. He survives as a door-to-door salesman, which is where he masters persuasion, the cold open, that ability to just instantly command a room. That was his forge.
And after all that time relying only on his wits, he finally sees this physical embodiment of the power he'd been cultivating. He runs into Prince, the musician, who was only 18 himself at the time.
Oh.
And seeing Prince, this small man who just commanded massive power, it gave Williams what the source calls the authorization he needed to occupy space without apology.
And that defiance really sets the stage for his entry into Hollywood. The moment the Trojan horse was wheeled into the gates was his role as Money Mike in Friday After Next.
He was in the system, but he was always going to be on his own terms.
Right.
And this is where the philosophy behind his satire gets so clear. He uses that flamboyant pimp persona as a shield. It's a colorful distraction so he can smuggle radical critiques of capitalism and race relations into the mainstream.
He wasn't glorifying it.
No, he was satirizing a society where really everyone is selling something. a product, a service, or, their own integrity.
And he drew a line in the sand immediately, before he was
Yeah.
even a star. He famously fought the producers, even Ice Cube, to remove a scripted scene for his character that involved a sexual assault.
He used what the sources call a mathematician's logic. His argument wasn't just moral, it was about the craft. He basically said that sexual violence creates a deficit of laughter that no joke can ever pay back. It just poisons the well.
And he won.
He won, which was this critical act of sovereign defiance. It meant, okay, I'll wear the costume, but I will dictate the terms of the performance. Absolutely.
Which is why his 2006 special, The Pimp Chronicles, Pete 1, is really more like a dissertation on the geopolitics of the drug war than just stand-up. The depth of the material was hidden under that camouflage.
And you see him evolve past the need for that persona. By 2008, it's pimpin', he's already pivoting to more direct political confrontation. And by Great America in 2018, the money mic crutch is gone.
The delivery is completely different.
It shifted from jokes to what you could almost call sermons on the disintegration of the American political landscape. He felt the audience was finally ready for the uncut version.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. That shift leads directly to the apex moment in January 2024. The media called his Club Shay Shay appearance a rant, but our source material frames it as a calculated algorithmic strike.
He'd figured out the math of the internet. Authenticity is the ultimate currency.
And he used that platform not to promote himself, but to just reset the entire comedy hierarchy. He goes after Steve Harvey, Cedric the Entertainer, Kevin Hart, leveling these core accusations, plagiarism being industry plants.
Compromising integrity for access.
He wasn't just starting feuds, he was articulating this whole philosophical critique of the system itself.
Exactly. And that raises the big question. Why did that one conversation resonate with 83 million people?
Williams was basically saying the industry rewards rough drafts and mediocrity over the actual craft of joke writing.
And by getting those views without any network support, he proved his own theory. He proved it. That the audience is starving for authenticity above everything else. He showed he could dominate the entire cultural conversation just by telling his version of the truth, completely bypassing the institutions.
That public audit of integrity, it has to be connected to, the radical commitment in his private life. He's a father of 10 kids, 3 biological, 7 adopted.
That requires a whole different kind of sovereignty. And the origin of that commitment, it tells you everything about the man. It started when he found out his son's 7 siblings were about to go into the foster care system.
And at the time he was making what, like less than $25,000 a year?
Less than that. And yet he made a covenant to raise all of them. That is an almost unthinkable moral burden to take on.
It's a profound moral calculus. He didn't just adopt them, he calculated the cost with this startling precision.
$1 million per child. He set out to earn $10 million. That single decision forced him to abandon any idea of a carefree bachelor superstar life before it even started. Every show, every battle was tied to that promise.
Which explains so much. It recontextualizes the media's focus on his erratic behavior, the arrests. He says it's all from this extreme protective pressure. He denies any drug use. And if you look at his legal history, a lot of it really does seem to stem from perceived threats to his family.
If you connect it all, you see a man living without any buffer. No professional buffer, no emotional buffer. He's constantly fighting to protect his family. And the cost of that was revealed in that 2025 interview he did with Michelle Obama, the loss of one of his children.
That just puts everything else into such sharp relief. He called that grief the worst thing that can happen to you on this earth. He said there's no recovery from it. That reality underscores why he reacts so fiercely when his private world is breached. He's already lived through the worst possible loss.
So now, as we stand here in late 2025, he's entered what he calls his golden age, retreating to his farm. This isn't him running from Hollywood. It's him showing you can build a better, more autonomous world outside of it.
And we're finally seeing his silent, subterranean philanthropy come to light. The proof his critiques weren't just talk. He was privately paying for Melba Moore's Walk of Fame star, funding organ transplants, famously giving Boozy Badazz $15,000 in cash when he was released.
That quiet work was the foundation for his long game, building the alternative. Partnering with Miles College and HBCU, launching the golf tournament, and of course, breaking ground on Kemet Studios.
So what does this all mean for his legacy? It's not just the comedy, is it? It's the creation of an infrastructure for ownership. He's making sure young Black creatives can own their intellectual property and bypass the gatekeepers he exposed.
He proved you could reject the entire entertainment complex and still win as long as you bet on the intelligence of your audience.
He defined his whole career by these calculated subtractions from systems of control. First religion, then education, then Hollywood.
And he leaves us all with a pretty necessary challenge.
We have to consider, what are the real-world systems we tolerate in our own lives, and what is the calculated cost of our own sovereignty?
We are literally watching the infrastructure of dissent get built in real time. It really makes you re-examine your own compromises.
Thank you for listening to the Golden Gems podcast. We'll be back next time with another deep dive. Until then, keep exploring, keep listening, and keep celebrating the power of uncompromising voices.